And good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in our Facebook communities. Appreciate you joining us this morning. We're on Atlanta Falcons fans on all Falcons on Facebook, and we are at Scott Kennedy Sports on Facebook. We're going to bring those in so we can get all of our Facebook community in. It's a good size group and growing. So welcome in, everybody. This is Forging the Falcons on the Falcons podcast. I am your host, Scott Kennedy. We are live on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. I had some travel to deal with yesterday. Glad to be back and glad to have you all here with me. Maybe we get a little bit more chance to let things breathe. And frankly, with the news of Matt Ryann getting benched by the Indianapolis Colts, maybe it's a good day to have this discussion to be on here today. I want to get into the Cincinnati Bengals game. Some of the personnel. We'll talk a little bit about that. Look forward to the Panthers. We'll touch on that a little bit, and we'll talk about personnel and kind of the direction of this team. And if the Indianapolis Colts can make a move, part of it was forced, but Frank Reich was adamant that Matt Ryan's separated shoulder was not the reason they were making a move for the season, not just until Matt Ryann got healthy again. Which begs a question: if the Colts can do it with Matt Ryann, what's holding the Falcons from doing it with Marcus Mariota, who's been okay? He's been okay. He hasn't been, transcendent. He's been okay. It asks you the question, what are your goals for the year? And you ask yourself and you ask out loud, maybe the Falcons should find out what they have in Marcus Mariota. But maybe, in Desmond Ridder, but maybe they do know. I'm of the opinion you don't really know what you've got until you see him in games, unless it's so blatantly obvious one way or the other. But, we saw enough from Desmond Ridder. God, I've said that twice already. From Ridder in the preseason to know that he's worth a look in the NFL. I think we've seen that. So as everybody's coming in, appreciate everybody rolling in here on Facebook and YouTube. Want to say good morning to some folks. Thea D coming in on YouTube saying good morning, Scott. Good morning, Thea. Jay Davis. At least I think that's Jay Davis. Coming in, he says Arthur Smith needs to change his scheme. That's we'll get into that one a little bit. And I would ask, why? Why would he need to change his scheme? Coming into the Bengals game with smoke and mirrors, he had a top 10 scoring offense. You play to the strength of your players. You want to drop back and run a run and shoot with Marcus Mariota. That kind of gets into the question a little bit of, do you need to change your players a little bit? This scheme, for what he's had, has worked very, very well. Again, with a top 10 scoring offense, with that offensive line that's returning from last year. Your number one receiver is a rookie. Your number two receiver is a fourth at best in Olamide Zaccheaus. Kyle Pitts, we could use some more of him for sure. And Jay says 13 passes when down 3 scores is not going to do it, but it did. They got back into the game. It was 28-17 going into halftime. They were in this game. So it did get back in the game. It got back in the game against the Buccaneers. Again, the scoring is fine. I would like to see the personnel, and that's not necessarily scheme, Jay. That's play calling based on personnel. We haven't seen the full scheme because I don't believe we've seen the personnel to run his scheme, if that makes sense. So I don't think it's necessarily why are you only throwing the ball? I guess this is the chicken or the egg question, Jay. Are you only throwing it 13 times because you don't trust your quarterback to throw it more than 13 times? You don't trust your offensive line to block for that quarterback more than 13 times? You don't trust your receiving core to have more than 13 passes? I think this is more of a personnel thing than it is a scheme. And again, what they've been doing to this point has been working. They're so outmanned on defense right now. It was a better group, thin for sure. You start losing corners, good gracious, we've seen what could happen. We'll get into that a little bit. Jamal coming in says, good morning, Scott, and everyone else. Rise up. Appreciate you coming in, Jamal. Sleepy Tom on Facebook coming in. Hit that like button. Who's hit the like button so far? Joe. I can count on Joe. Joe Cannon is coming this morning. He says, good morning, Scott, and he has hit the like button. So, getting back to the Cincinnati Bengals game, I had a troll kind of hit me up on Twitter saying, Here come the excuses. We all know what the excuses are going to be for this Atlanta Falcons team. Well, are they? I mean, excuses. You think it's kind of a negative connotation when you say excuses, like, oh, they're just making stuff up. Well, I mean, the problems this Atlanta Falcons team has are valid. We've said a zillion times how thin they are, where their roster is based across other teams' rosters with missing $100 million in payroll. We start having some injuries in the defensive secondary, especially. It starts getting bad. Now, I don't want any professional team giving up 500 yards passing, and I think 400 of that was in the first half. But you're down AJ Terrell. You're down Casey Hayward. Isaiah Oliver is in his second game back. Jalen Hawkins gets a concussion. Your pass rush is already okay. We know Joe Burrow can deal with a pass rush. Shoot, 6 sacks a game is about average for him. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But you're going against 3 number ones and a pretty good tight end in Hayden Hurst. Joe Mixon has been okay this year, not great, but you're going against really 3 number 1 receivers. Would it be outrageous to say the Falcons have the Bengals have 3 receivers better than any one of the Falcons receivers right now? Drake London, I love his trajectory, but you're talking about T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase. Is Drake London really ahead of any of those 3 at this point in his career? He's 21 years old, 3 number 1s. Well, I know Joe Burrow is ahead of Marcus Mariota as a thrower. We know that. Going against a depleted secondary like that, against a below average pass rush, guess what's going to happen? It wasn't a very good matchup going into the game once the Falcons started dropping like they did in the secondary. That's going to happen. What I want to see is, again, what was it, 21-0? Pretty close. The Falcons come back and they knock that thing to 28-17. That's what I want to see out of this team right now. Are they still fighting? Can they still play and do all of those things? I was pleased with the effort, of course, that the Falcons were showing, but there's going to be some games like this. They won pretty handily against 49ers who were banged up. Then they go up to Cincinnati, who played like they were in the Super Bowl last year. And they just couldn't stop them. I thought the Falcons was okay. I thought the Falcons offense was fine. But the defense was so outmanned in this game that it was always going to be a problem. Big Al coming in on YouTube. Good morning, Big Al. I hope you're doing well. He says, good morning. I don't know why everybody's wanting a QB change so bad. I mean, I'd like one too, but we all knew we were getting a Marcus Mariota. So you kind of contradict yourself a little bit on that one, Big Al. You say, I don't know why we want one so bad. I want one too. Well, then you know why. Marcus Mariota's been good. I'm not out here saying, okay, this should be done. This should be done. Marcus Mariota's been, again, I think probably a little better than expected. I think, and I'm going to go back to Jay's point here about changing his scheme when he says Arthur Smith needs to change his scheme. Again, I think the scheme is good. I think the scheme is really good. You were a top 10 offense with this team. Who expected a top 10 offense in scoring right now after 6 games? 7 games, they scored 17 was the final, I believe. That's not going to knock them down too much. So you're still a top half offense. But Mariota has shown to be, I think, efficient enough with the ball passing that they should start opening it up a little bit more. So on that point, Jay, I do agree with you on that one. I mean, he had a 90 plus. He's right there mid-tier in passing efficiency. His completion percentage has been great. He's taking care of the ball for the most part. That said, I tweeted in the middle of the second quarter it seems like the play calling right now is, okay, we are going to try and be balanced. We're going to try. And now we're down 21-0. To hell with it. I'm just going to run it down their damn throats. And that has worked. It has worked really well. We need more than that. The Falcons need more than that out of their offense. They need to be able to complete a pass in passing situations. You need to know that I can get guys open. 3rd and 8. I feel good about getting a first down. Does anybody feel good on 3rd and long right now with this offense? No. I feel good on 1st and 10. I feel good on 2nd and 6. 3rd and 8, not so much. 3rd and 3, real good. 3rd and 8, not so much. And Big Al's second point was, don't get me wrong, I want Marcus to do good. I want him to win games, but we just know he is not that high caliber of a quarterback. Yeah, I kind of, is what it is. I'm kind of tired of that phrase. I think Nick Saban kind of made it famous as is what he is, who he is. He is who he is, but I think he's been playing well. And I guess it gets to this point, everybody, when we're talking about the Indianapolis Colts came into the season with pretty high aspirations. We're going to make a playoff run. Are we the Buffalo Bills? No. Are we the Kansas City Chiefs? Probably not. Can we be that third team coming in where we can make some noise in the playoffs? Yes, we can. And they're 3-1 in a pretty bad division. The AFC South and the NFC South certainly doesn't replicate college football, where the Southeastern Conference is king. They're pretty bad. So they're still in the thick of it. But frankly, so are the Falcons at 3-4. They're still in the thick of it too. That's the design of the NFL. They want to fool everybody into thinking you're into it. If you hang around 500, you're a playoff contender. But are you a good team? Are you really a good team? Do you feel like you were watching a team? You watched the Jets-Broncos game this weekend? Good God. Just awful. The Jets are 5-2. And that was just awful football. We'll get into that next on Mile High Huddle when Nick and I do Broncos for breakfast. It was just horrendous. So the Falcons are hanging around 500, hanging around in the playoffs, and I think they are good enough in the trenches this year, good enough coached, well enough coached, to hang around 500 most of the year. That is a leaps and bounds improvement over what I was expecting this year based on the trench play that was returning that got better for sure. We've talked about that a lot. Any questions on that about that? If you're new or you want to come in or you have a question after the fact, why have you changed your mind on this team? Anything? I'm not going to rehash all that right now. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I do think I have revised my projections for this team to hanging around 500 for most of the year. Problem with that, this still isn't a good team. This isn't a good Falcons team where you think they can actually make some noise in the playoffs and go on a run and win something. So we actually said at the beginning of the season that what is worst case for this team? Like another 7-10 season. That would be worst case for this team. You're better off, man, just 3-14 or 10-7. Obviously, playoffs are your goal. But 7-10, 8-9, and you're picking in the middle of the pack instead of having a top 5 pick, and you're just kind of meh. That would be the worst case for this team. That's where this team is trending right now, with a quarterback who doesn't really have a future with this team. Marcus Mariota, I don't believe, is a long-term quarterback. I don't believe that. I think he is doing really, really well as a bridge quarterback. But what are the goals of this team? What are the goals of this franchise? Part of it is the culture. We've talked about no excuses, going in and playing and not making any excuses. Arthur Smith could have gone up there and talked about how beat up they were. But they don't want to give up 500 yards no matter who they're putting out there. They're professional and they're not taking any excuses. So they're going out there trying to win every game. But how much do you lose with Ritter? Really? Are you losing anything with Ritter? Are you signaling that I'm throwing in the towel if I play Desmond Ritter? The Indianapolis Colts can do it with Matt Ryan and put in Sam Ehlinger, who has just about as many professional snaps as Desmond Ritter. Sam Ehlinger, who rushed for 2,000 yards at the University of Texas over 4 years. Sam Ehlinger, who looked fantastic during the preseason. Any of this sound familiar? Any of this sound like anybody we know here? With the Atlanta Falcons, he sounds a lot like how we would describe Desmond Ritter. So Desmond Ritter, we had pointed to a lot in the preseason. If you're going to make a move, if Desmond Ritter was going to get a chance, when was it going to be? And looking at the schedule, it was always week 8, Carolina Panthers at home. Will it happen? I don't think so. I don't. Should it happen? Yeah, it probably should. Know what you got, get in there. And if he provides a spark, great. Up his trade value. If you want somebody else in the draft, so be it. But this team is going to hang around 500 and be okay. Okay. If that's what you want, I get it. I want them to go out there and put their best team on the field. And if he thinks that Marcus Mariota is the best quarterback, I want him to play. I'm looking a little bit more long term, at least even next year. It's not even that long term. Let me hit back on the chat just a little bit. Some folks coming in. Thea D says, with all the pressure coming back on offense to score and they didn't commit turnovers is a positive I'll take. Again, you go down 21-0. You went down big to the Buccaneers and you came back and fought. This is a different Falcons team. It really is. This team is going out and fighting for Arthur Smith. And whether it's because a lot of them are on one-year contracts, I don't know. But again, I do like the mentality and the culture of this team is a positive for me as well. James Hyatt coming in says, good morning, Scott. Good morning, James. Hope you are doing well. Joe Cannon has a good question. He says, do we make a move for a DB with all the injuries we have? Arthur Smith, Michael Rothstein, ESPN Atlanta Falcons beat writer, asked the same thing. Let me bring up the depth chart for the Atlanta Falcons. But Arthur Smith said basically, doesn't mean watch what they do, not what they say. But he basically said, our job is to develop the guys we have. We've brought a certain type of player in here. We believe in them. But watch what they do. They've got an open spot on their roster. There's 52 on the 53 man right now. So expect somebody to get elevated. You've got Dylan Mabin. You've got Matt Hankins. You've got Cornell Armstrong. So you've got 3 corners on the practice squad right now. Expect somebody to get an elevation. Whether they get brought up full time or not, expect at least one of them to get a flex during the game against the Panthers this week. But Arthur Smith said no. That's not what they're looking for. Everybody's looking for players. Everybody's got problems to an extent. That's true. And part of it's just coach speak, we believe in the guys we have. When I've said, if you have some openings, you're going to fill those openings. So obviously, if someone goes on IR, there will be a move made. If someone goes on IR, there's a spot open right now. So expect a move to be made. Do they go for a defensive back? But as a coach, he gets up there and he stands up there and says, we believe in the guys we have here. And that's what he needs to say. That's what he needs to say. That's what the guys need to hear. Not, oh, we're really shorthanded. And we're going to bring some guys in. We're going to look, as you said before, they're always looking to bring guys in, always looking to see what they can do. But if I'm one of those 3 guys on the practice squad, and I know I got 2 corners in trouble, 3 corners in trouble, and they say, oh yeah, we got to make a move. We're really shorthanded. If you're one of those 3 guys on the practice squad, you're looking around saying, man, I thought I was going to get a chance. What am I even doing here? So what he's saying publicly is what he should say for sure. But there's an open spot. It's going to get filled. So good question, Joe. Dave comes in. Dave says, good morning, Scott, and the rest of y'all. Rest of you guys. Dave, good morning. Glad you're here. Roderick Cook on YouTube says, Mariota needs a rebuild. His best is yet to come for him. He has a free season. You think so, Roderick? You think what you see now is just scratching the surface on what we're going to see from Marcus Mariota, and we're going to unleash this Cam Newton MVP-esque dual threat Marcus Mariota, Oregon Heisman Trophy quarterback, or are we just trying to go for uber efficient and he can run the ball and do some things? He's shown improvement, that's for sure. I think his trajectory has been in a positive direction. Knocking some of the rust off and getting used to the speed of the game again. He hadn't started in over 2 years, regularly started in over 2 years. Does he have, tremendous upside? He was a good passer at Oregon, not a great passer. You didn't look at him and say, oh yeah, there's Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is a prototype thrower. Marcus Mariota never was. Desmond Ridder, I think, is probably a little bit better of a passer. Numbers were similar. Mariota's numbers at Oregon were insane. That was an offense built for him. But the best is yet to come for him, Roderick. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I feel we're getting good out of him. Could we get more? I said that already. Yeah, I think I'd like to see his attempts come up into, instead of being 10 of 13 passing, how about 15 at 23? And start breaking 200 yards. Of the guys that have played 7 games, of the quarterbacks that have played 7 games so far, he's second to last in yards behind. He's just ahead of Justin Fields, who is starting to show some life too. Dave says, with the exception of the first game and maybe the second half of the Browns game, what is Coach Pease doing to hold teams from scoring in the second half of games? Against the Bengals, he's smart and he makes adjustments. Again, I talked about this a little bit last week, Dave. I think some of it is personnel. You're going to be rotating guys in, and hopefully you're doing some of that in the first half, trying to keep your guys fresh for the fourth quarter and stuff. But the Saints, like you said, they opened things up, and Jameis Winston went like he does against the Falcons. He's got like a 110 quarterback rating, a 115 quarterback rating against the Falcons in his career. It's insane. Then he reverts back to form, and the Saints stink. But what are some of the things he's doing? I think he plays a little bit more conservative early, and then brings some pressure late. I think that's part of it. He makes good adjustments, and then you start playing the hot hand. You'll see the rotation going in and making sure that you've got your best personnel in the most critical situations. But that's why the depth is so important when you're having those rotations. You're going to have about a 2-to-1 split on the defensive line. So 33% of the time, you're going to be having your second team guys out there. So 1 in 3 drives, right? So you want those guys hopefully to play a little bit earlier in your rotation, so you've got your top guys fresh for the second half. Anthony Shea coming in. Good morning, Anthony. Appreciate you being here. Says Arthur Smith hasn't made any excuses. He knows that we have the right guys, just have to execute and obviously stay healthy. I don't know about the right guys. There's going to be a lot of turnover, Anthony. Everybody on this team is either on a rookie deal or on a 1-year deal. And if I say 1-year deal, but Scott's, Marcus Mariota signed a 2-year deal. A multiple year deal is only as good as you are to the franchise. What you do, SpotRack's made this real easy. Just go to the salary, look at the dead cap number. The dead cap number is how much you cost against the cap if you're cut. His number goes to a $2 million dead cap number. So if they want to keep him, they can. If they don't, it only costs $2 million. That's a 1-year deal with a club option. So when I say a 1-year deal, that's what I mean, even if they have multiple years on their contract. If they are expendable, it's a 1-year deal. They're not guaranteed deals. He's already gotten his guaranteed money. So everybody on this team is on a 1-year deal or a rookie contract. There's going to be a lot of turnover. So again, this team is just getting started. And Anthony comes in. Yeah, I see that you're right on them being on the way out. At least we're getting the quarterback. Jared is getting to the quarterback. Jared is playing well. It feels different though, Anthony, right? Talked about the quarterback coming into the game with 8 sacks, put the Falcons 30th in the NFL in sacks. 30th. They were so god-awful. I said it, statistically almost impossible, statistically impossibly bad rushing the quarterback last year, that 8th and 30th feels like a grits blitz. They added 3 more, so they're at 11. They were at 18 last year, I believe. 18. The second worst team in the NFL last year was 29. You could bring in a double-digit sack guy and still be last. That's how impossibly bad it was last year. So that they've improved to just bad, being 30th in the league, feels amazing. It feels, wow, we're really getting after the quarterback. In truth, though, Anthony, the Falcons aren't. They're, compared to the rest of the league, they're not. They're not getting to the quarterback on that level. But I agree with you, though. There's improvement. I don't have to have prime Lawrence Taylor out there right away. There's improvement. Climb out of the cellar to just bad is heading in the right direction. And you're doing it with a journeyman, Lorenzo Carter, and you're doing it with Arnold Ebiketie, who is playing really, really well. Not just for a rookie, he's playing well. There's a lot of promise there. But when you start looking at team building, for me, edge, corner, another wide receiver, and then we got to decide what we're going to do at the quarterback position. You got to get more of a pass rusher. You need another edge. You've got D'Angelo Malone. You've got Lorenzo Carter on a one-year deal. You've got Arnold Ebiketie. 2 rookies, Lorenzo Carter. Who else is in there? Oh, and Ade Ogundeji. If he's going to be around for year 3 beyond just a rotation role, he's got to play better. He's the starter technically now, but he's not playing very well. He did not make that leap that Taquan Graham did. Taquan Graham and him were drafted in 4th and 5th rounds last year. Taquan Graham has taken that leap from, okay, I'm having to play, I'm not really ready, and I'm not very good last year, to I'm kicking ass this year. Taquan Graham has been good. And you mentioned Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett has been playing at a Pro Bowl level, without a doubt. Grady Jarrett's been fantastic. He's been at a Pro Bowl level. But for me, looking at team building next year, right tackle, is Caleb McGarry going to be back? Big question mark. And then more playmakers at wide receiver. You're going to need some help for those guys. That's where I think it comes in. And Big Al says, what about the offensive line? Left tackle Jake Matthews is under contract for a long time. Eli Wilkinson, left guard, has been really good. You could bring him back. He's on a 1-year deal. Cheap 1-year deal. Center, yes, please. We're going to have to address the center position and see if Drew Dahlman bring him and Hennessy and put some resources in and see if they can hold off somebody with some money. Right guard is taken care of. You've got Chris Lindstrom on his 5th-year deal on his rookie extension. So he'll be on his 5th year. He'll be up for a contract extension. And then right tackle, I'm for paying Caleb McGarry. I think he's earned it. You know who else I am for paying? Is this guy, Nick Kendell, coming in, going to join us for the last 15 minutes or so. We're talking just a little bit of team building. And we've also talked a little bit of if Matt Ryan can be benched for the Indianapolis Colts, what's to hold back the Falcons from doing the same with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder? And good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. Tired. Got flu and COVID booster yesterday, so I'm a little bit sore in the arms, but feeling good. And also did my cousin was in town, dropped him off at the airport last night at about 11, and did some sunrise hike. So been going. I feel like it's been a bit. So good to see you, Scott. As far as what was the question?
We're talking, what? We're talking, the big news yesterday, and I think even in the Atlanta Falcons country, was that Matt Ryan was benched.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a Matt Ryan was very polarizing his last few years as the team got worse. Mm-hmm. There was it's all his fault, and then there was we love Matt Ryan, none of it's his fault group, and then there's the small sliver of people who are, right in between there. And there was a little bit of sadness from some folks that he's, out separated shoulder and then benched. And then, some of those that are like, we told you he was washed up. But if the Colts can do that, who have higher aspirations going into this season, can do it and bring in basically an untested player in Sam Ehlinger, why can't the Falcons do that with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder? Is Mariota playing well enough that he's a locked-on starter? Or, do you want to see a little bit more? Is there a reason why you're only throwing the ball a dozen times a game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that Mariota's ability in the run game, although another fumble loss isn't ideal for the run game, but he's still a playmaking option. I consider if the quarterback's running the football, that to be another play from the quarterback, and I'd lump that as a rush attempt. I mean, we saw it can be super effective last night. I don't know how much he caught, but Justin Fields actually looked like he maybe had his coming out party against the Patriots there. So I feel like probably right now there's a relationship with Arthur Smith and Marcus Mariota that dates back to the Tennessee days, and they are still very much in the thick of things. Where the Colts, I mean, I guess they're in the thick of things too, but you're tied for first in the division. I mean, I don't see there being a reason until things start to even get way off the rails that it's going to be an issue there. And while the Falcons put up, 17 points last week, the offense wasn't good enough, but they didn't give up 35 points. They're not the reason that you lost this game. It was giving up nearly 500 yards to Joe Burrow through the air.
And that was just the first half.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of the things, cornerbacks, pass rush, things that we've been talking about on here, question marks for this team. You probably still need a true alpha edge rusher, but like Ebiketie, but like him more as a Robin than a Batman. And you need some just depth at the cornerback position across the board. So this is one where that reared its head. At some point, I think if this team, let's say you lose 5 of your next 7 games or something like that, then we can be talking, I think, Desmond Ridder, kind of seeing what you have there because the way Marcus Mariota's contract is set up. But for now, I don't think that I would be pressing that button just quite yet because Mariota's been good enough, in my opinion.
And for the first time all year, week 8, the Falcons are favored 4.5 points against the Panthers, who are coming off a nice win. So great. All of a sudden, the Panthers are looking dangerous all of a sudden. So Kevin coming in on Facebook saying, good morning, guys. Good morning, Kevin. Appreciate you being here. And Anthony Shea saying, I think the Colts line has really let Matt down. Also, the system he's playing isn't 100%. Is it maybe hard time to adjust or just too late? If you're a Matt Ryan detractor, you would say his lack of mobility and holding on the ball too long is causing his 24 sacks because he's been sacked 24 times. He had 4 seasons in Atlanta where he was sacked 24 times or less. He's already been sacked 24 times with the Colts. If you're a detractor of Matt Ryan, you would point that there's a common denominator here. Then they can't run the ball either. All of a sudden, Jonathan Taylor, who's been nicked up, they can't run the ball. So the line hasn't been great. And he's been giving the ball away too much. The fumbles, all of that stuff is a bit much. Ellinger's. We're going to see the mobile quarterback. Like I said, Ellinger rushed for 2,000 yards at Texas. The guy can move, and he was flawless. He was really, really good in the preseason. I thought him or Foles might end up being traded, and they still might. Dave says, Scott, can Mariota have a Ryan Tannehill-like resurgence? If not, then what are we really talking about with this guy? It's a good question. He's playing efficiently, which is where Tannehill was. Tannehill was efficient in winning games, but that Titans team from top to bottom was just a lot better. They were a lot better than the Falcons. The Falcons are right now. And you remember, who did Tannehill replace? It was same coach, same team, and all of a sudden Tannehill looks better. Now, Mariota has been, again, he's been fine. He's been fine. Do you want fine or do you want better? I would like to see him get 8 to 10 more throws. 22, 23 throws, Nick, isn't out of the question, is it?
No, it's not. And you almost wonder how much they are protecting him from the wide receiver talent outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts, killing me in fantasy, buddy. But other than that, that might be part of it as well. It might be personnel based. And I guess until last week, it had been working. The Falcons were putting up points at a decent clip, and that's even with losing Cordell Patterson there. So can't get too upset about that. I appreciate Dave probably having more of the long-term perspective. Like if Mariota isn't the long-term answer, then what are we doing here? Maybe want to see Desmond Ridder there. But at the same time, you are tied for first place in the division, and we aren't seeing what they're looking
for, though, Nick.
Yeah, but you are in the midst of things for this season.
That's the false hope the NFL tries to sell you by expanding the playoffs and trying to make everybody crap.
I think, though, the goal should be to make the playoffs, and that should be, you should be pointing towards that. And we're not in the practice facility or the locker room. And if there was I believe if it was close between these two quarterbacks in that situation, picking up the offense, running the practice, we might have seen Ridder displaced by now. But there doesn't seem to be any whisper of that or murmur of that. So if you make that switch, you're probably telling this team that we don't care about this season, even though we're right in the midst of things. We're going to play the worst quarterback. And you can't do that for a team that has been in the situation the Falcons have been for years. I agree with you. This isn't a Super Bowl team, but even getting the playoffs, getting that experience, that confidence, I think you got to continue to play the better guy. Now, maybe Desmond Ridder's right behind him again. We're not there watching the practice. We're not there in the meeting rooms. If he is, then I'd be more open to this conversation. But being 3-4, I know it's not great, but you're in the midst of things. Play the best guy for now.
I will say, Nick, what we are seeing is reason one of 5 why I was so against taking pass catchers with the first 2, the last 2 years with those 2 high picks, because you can't use them. If you don't have the quarterback play and you can't stop anybody, the offensive line has improved. That was reason number 1 why I didn't want a pass catcher. Number 2 was a quarterback play. Number 3 was a defense. So number 1, the offensive line seems to be good. That's been solved. But when you've got questions at quarterback, and here's the thing, is you're probably going to have questions at quarterback next year. Now you're in year 3 of Kyle Pitts on a 4-year deal with a 1-year option. So on year 3 of a 5-year deal, and everybody's wondering, what about Kyle Pitts?
The tag for him will be exceedingly cheap, though, unless it goes to arbitration kind of issues. Because you think he'll go as a wide receiver. I mean, I get a play as a tight end in fantasy, but that's the question.
His agent, he won't play on a tight end tag. For those of you listening, Nick is talking about if you go with a 5th-year option, which is a slotted based on, doesn't matter your position, you get it'll be expensive because he's a number 4 overall pick. You get a slotted salary based on where you were picked. But the franchise tag is based on your position. You get an average of the top 5 highest salaries in the NFL at that position. And Nick is saying that the tag on him as a tight end would be pretty cheap.
It would be.
But he wouldn't play on that because he plays wide receiver. No, he's actually been more in line and doing some good blocking. He's really improved there, for sure. But again, what you're watching is why I wanted trench play for the most part. Go get an edge, get a fire-breathing offensive tackle. I did say, though, to be fair, so I'm not just grading completely in hindsight, is, the face of the franchise at the time, the best available player may have been Kyle Hamilton at safety, Atlanta kid, and he ain't cutting it right now for the Ravens. So right now, Drake London still looks like the better pick. D-Train coming in. D-Train, that feels like a newer name. So D-Train, appreciate you being here. Love the picture. That smiling face is awesome. So good morning, Mr. Wilson. Hope things are going well. Appreciate you being here. And Eric coming in saying, good morning, fellas. Are you worried about our cornerback depth? Having 3rd strings on Pro Bowl wide receivers was a liability of that game. I'm going to kind of make a joke out about this, Eric. There is a certain calmness in utter doom. I realized that in college when I was completely unprepared for a test and was the calmest I've ever been in my life because I had 0 chance of passing it. None. Outcome was decided. Am I worried about the cornerback depth? Man, it's terrible. The outcome was decided. It was doom. But yes, to answer your question seriously, yes. Extremely worried about it. Going in, a healthy Isaiah Oliver, Casey Hayward, AJ Terrell is good. That's good. You're down 2 of those 3, and Oliver took most of the season already. He's only in his 2nd game. You can't beat the Bengals in Cincinnati with backups, and not just backups, but backups to backups, veteran minimum backups, guys that you pulled off other people's practice squads or draft picks that nobody else wanted. You don't want to give up 500 yards, but that those guys were going to have such big games that they're pulling hamstrings from running free all game was fairly predictable, Eric. So yeah, some things need to be done. And that's why I said off-season team building, edge, cornerback, wide receiver. Those are probably my top 3 priorities. Nick.
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver, you could definitely talk about that one. Cornerback, edge. It depends when the Falcons are picking, right? Also, I mean, you could bring in anybody on the defensive side of the ball, and they can make a difference for you. I was kind of looking over the big board here on the Draft Network, and just the style of play here for the Falcons. This one might seem, you might be like, oh my God, I can't even believe it.
Don't say wide receiver. Just don't say it.
I wasn't going to say wide receiver. Tight end. Tight end. For how much you use 12 personnel, you could detach Kyle Pitts more. There's a tight end. It's not Brock Bowers from Georgia. I know you guys know you're Brock Bowers down there. He's incredible. He'll be a top 5 pick probably in 2024. But Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, maybe that can attach the offensive line. If you want to live in a 12 personnel world, he is probably a top 15 pick in the upcoming draft. So interesting one there as well, but just continue to getting good players. Cornerback, edge rusher, probably those are the big two for first round right now. Maybe a versatile offensive lineman that could probably live in guard early on and then kick out the tackle, giving you some flexibility. Just continue to add resources there. But edge rusher and cornerback are the obvious big two.
Yeah, those are the big ones. And then, just depth all around. If you could promise me Travis Kelce, I'd give a number 1 overall. Oh my God. I really haven't watched the Chiefs through the years. I watched them this weekend. Travis Kelce, my goodness, is he good? I mean, there's some, you see the numbers, who's putting up numbers. I see stats, but watching them in person, we've gotten a chance to watch the 49ers recently. I've watched the Chiefs. Who else has some? I think of Kelce, Kittle. We know Pitts, but from what I've seen, Kelce's a step above even Kittle right now. He's just really, really good. Can you get that guy though? Again, if they were to go tight end in the first round, I'd probably flip a lid. Even more so than them taking wide receiver last year. Again, because you can't use your offensive skill players yet, not the way you want to.
Yeah.
When you're giving up a bunch of points and your quarterback isn't settled. James coming in on I appreciate you, James. James coming in on YouTube. He said, should the Falcons play Desmond Ridder? For me, yes. The more playing time, the better. Mariota isn't long term. Ridder might be. Let's find out. And that's kind of the discussion here. Is how much of a difference right now is there between Mariota and Ridder? Is it close? We're not there every day. What we saw in the preseason was Ridder looked pretty damn good. What we saw in the preseason from Sam Ehlinger was Sam Ehlinger looked pretty damn good. They are benching their starter. They had Sam Ehlinger third string 2 weeks ago for the Colts, and he is starting this week. Young, mobile, has shown well. Bold move. Difference is Frank Reich's on the hot seat. Yeah. Arthur Smith isn't. This could be a Hail Mary too. Yeah. That's the other point I wanted to make, and I kind of forgot. Was Frank Reich is his job's in danger. Arthur Smith's isn't. So are you doing one last thing to try and save your job where Arthur Smith doesn't have to? He doesn't have to go with the big risk. He doesn't have to.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. And I saw a question here from Kevin Fitzpatrick talking about the Falcons here with he says, our guys are not getting open. Is it the scheme? Part of it is the scheme. Obviously you lack talent here, but the Falcons, at least to my knowledge, are using the heaviest dosage of max protect in the NFL with deep play action, keeping everybody besides 2 guys in the block and then sending those guys on deep routes, Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And for the most part, it had been working pretty damn well for the Falcons at this point. So it's kind of, it's both as the long answer there. But I think you're probably right, Scott. Using a first round pick on a wide receiver again would be an issue, but a day 2 pick probably needs to be almost in Sharpie. You need to figure out some maneuverability there to bring in another wide receiver who's capable of being a third option there, or because you have so much cash, maybe throwing some money around this offseason at the position for a wide receiver 2, target 3.
Couple of questions real quick, then we got to hop over to Mile High Huddle to talk that Broncos-Jets game. My goodness.
Woof. God, man.
Awful. I haven't been on yet. I missed yesterday.
Yeah.
But we'll be back again here tomorrow. Dave comes and he says, do you agree with Coach Peace about the yardage allowed thing, which is basically yards don't matter, only points do? That's an oversimplification. You always say, bend but don't break, allow in between the 20s, but getting guys off the field is important. So if I'm allowing guys to drive 12 plays, 8-minute drives and kick a field goal, that's going to tell. And then I'm going 3 and out and they do it again. You're not going to be able to win games like that. Even if you hold the points down, you're not going to be able to win games like that if you can't get stops. So it's an oversimplification. I get where he's coming from, but you got to be able to get guys off the field. And when you're giving up 500 yards, you're also giving up 30 plus points. So that was an oversimplification. If I can get stops and turnovers, I'm not worried so much about the yards between the 20s, but if they've got the ball the whole time and they are getting points at the end of their drives and I'm going 3 and out, I'm going to lose a lot of games. Clayton says, why don't we run screenplays, wide receiver, DB, or quarterback or offensive line? I've seen screenplays. That said, I don't know how good a receiver Tyler Algier is. Caleb Huntley just came off the practice squad. Avery Williams was a cornerback a month ago. No, he started in the offseason and running back, but he's been a corner his whole life. Let's get Cordell Patterson back. And then we'll ask the question, because I've seen the Falcons run really, really good screenplays with, especially to the right side where you've got Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry out there leading the line. I think right now it's personnel a little bit, and you're still facing some heavy boxes, Nick.
Yeah. And that's partially by design. Teams right now know that the Falcons are playing second highest rate of 2 tight ends and running the ball as much as anybody. Man, I just had a vision next year. The Falcons trading a lot of picks to the Ravens for Lamar Jackson and kind of seeing what that looks like out there. That might be a fun one.
That would be a fun one. That could be interesting.
This is just how the system would look there.
Arthur Blank will pay the man. We know that. We've seen Thomas Dimitroff waste hundreds of millions of Arthur Blank's money. So Arthur Blank and the money is not the problem. Yeah. So appreciate you everybody coming in here on a quick Tuesday. Sorry I wasn't available on Monday. I won't be here next Monday either. I'm traveling again next Monday. So we'll be back on Tuesday. We'll do a Tuesday reaction on a Wednesday show. But we will be back tomorrow at our regular scheduled Wednesday time. So everybody, thanks for being here. Hit that like button, that subscribe button on your way out. That's all we got. We're going to hop over to Mile High Huddle and rip apart the Broncos and Jets. So until tomorrow, we'll see you next time.